Sean Combs stood in Times Square and was handed a key to New York City. Today, he's been indicted and will face justice in the Southern District of New York.
One of the most famous names in the hip-hop world is now facing 3 charges in federal court.
The court just dropped some serious bombshells. Leaks are out about Diddy's infamous Freakoffs, featuring none other than Justin and Usher. And, yep, it's all caught on camera. If you thought things couldn't get wilder in the Diddy scandal, think again, because this footage might just blow the whole case wide open. Let's dive into the messy details and what it all means for the big names involved. About a year ago, Diddy was in Times Square, holding the key to New York City. Fast forward to today, and now he's facing justice in the Southern District of New York. One of hip-hop's biggest names is dealing with 3 federal charges. In recent months, many have stepped forward accusing Diddy of things like abuse, sex trafficking, and drug possession. Now, with the federal government involved, they're aiming to dismantle what they claim is his criminal empire. The Southern District of New York made it clear that they're committed to prosecuting anyone involved in sex trafficking, no matter how rich, powerful, or famous they are. They've made it their mission to bring justice for multiple victims, accusing Diddy of using his wealth and influence to control them. Whether it was forcing them to get drugs, perform sexual acts, or cover up his misdeeds. This isn't the first time Diddy's name has been in the spotlight for this kind of thing. Last November, his ex, Cassie, filed a huge lawsuit against him, accusing him of years of abuse, physically, sexually, and emotionally. Diddy denied it, but the case was settled just a day later. That opened the floodgates for more lawsuits, some even targeting his son, alleging sexual abuse, sex trafficking, drug possession, and violence.
Tonight, more accusations against Sean Diddy Combs, and now one of his sons. A new 31-page lawsuit filed on Thursday details a trip in 2022 where the plaintiff alleges she was working as a stewardess aboard a yacht owned by Combs when his son, Christian, drugged and sexually assaulted her.
Back in March, things escalated when Homeland Security agents raided Diddy's homes in Miami and Los Angeles. The search was linked to a sex trafficking investigation, and they reportedly gathered loads of evidence. Just this week, Diddy was arrested at the Park Hyatt Hotel in Manhattan, where he'd been staying for nearly 2 weeks, according to his defense team. They're using this to argue that he's not a flight risk and has been cooperative, although the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York seemed skeptical of that claim, saying the word cooperative has become pretty elastic in cases like this. Now that Diddy's been arrested and charged, questions are swirling about whether more co-conspirators will face charges and if more accusations will come out. The indictment against him outlines the prosecution's case. 3 charges: racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transporting individuals for prostitution. Diddy entered a not guilty plea, but if convicted, he's facing a minimum of 15 years in prison, and at worst, he could spend the rest of his life behind bars. The indictment is a packed 14 pages, detailing accusations that Diddy abused his power, wealth, and influence to coerce women and others around him to satisfy his desires, protect his reputation, and hide his actions. The government describes a criminal enterprise led by Diddy that involved crimes like sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. They're saying Diddy wasn't acting alone, but had employees and associates from his business empire helping him. One of the more shocking parts of the indictment is the mention of so-called Freakoffs, sex parties, where Diddy allegedly used his power to intimidate and lure women into performing sexual acts. These events, as described in the lawsuit, were elaborate and orchestrated performances that Diddy reportedly recorded. He's accused of arranging for commercial sex workers to be transported across state lines and even internationally for these events. These freak-offs allegedly happened on the regular, according to the indictment. First off, when it comes to these freak-offs, they're central to the sex trafficking charges that are being thrown at Diddy. During these events, Diddy allegedly handed out all kinds of drugs to the people involved, sometimes without them even knowing, just to keep them in line and cooperative. He was also said to have secretly recorded everything that went down, keeping videos of these wild acts with sex workers. Afterward, both he and the victims would get IV fluids to recover from all the drugs and physical strain. Now, Diddy didn't act alone. He's been hit with RICO conspiracy charges, meaning the government believes he ran this whole operation with the help of his business employees and close associates. These people weren't just standing by. They helped set up everything, from booking hotels and stocking them with supplies, drugs, baby oil, and extra linens, to cleaning up after things got out of control. They also made sure the victims and sex workers were flown in, and even delivered huge wads of cash for the sex workers. Things heated up in March 2024 when authorities raided Diddy's homes in Miami and LA. They found tons of evidence, including drugs and over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lube. Serious physical proof to back up the claims being made. On top of all this, the feds allege that Diddy used violence and threats to keep his victims in line. From physical beatings to threats about their careers. He was tracking their movements, controlling their medical records, and even managing their housing. Diddy Power wasn't just physical. He knew how to play with people's lives and careers too. For example, if someone didn't want to take part in these freak-offs, he'd threaten their livelihood and reputation. That's the backdrop for the racketeering charge, but there are 2 more charges too. One for sex trafficking through force, fraud, or coercion, and another for transporting people across state lines for prostitution. The indictment doesn't go into every allegation that's ever been made against Diddy, though. Notably, it doesn't mention anything about minors, even though there have been rumors about underage participants at his parties. Prosecutors said more charges could be added later, but for now, this is what they're focusing on. Now, Diddy's defense team is pushing hard to get him out on bail. They're proposing a $50 million bond, backed by his properties, and his family has even offered to surrender their passports. Diddy's even trying to sell his private jets to show he's not going anywhere. On top of that, he's saying he's been cooperating all along, pointing out that he even told the government where he was and that he'd turn himself in. But the feds still swooped in and made a big deal out of the arrest, which his lawyers are calling unnecessary. While his defense is talking about how he's a philanthropist and listing his charity work, the prosecution is standing firm, saying that Diddy is dangerous and should stay locked up. They're especially worried he might obstruct justice, pointing out how he used drugs, violence, and threats to keep his victims in line, and how he tried to bribe hotel staff to keep quiet after that infamous 2016 incident where he attacked Cassie. The video of that assault was supposedly erased from the hotel's security footage after Diddy's team got involved. Prosecutors are taking Cassie's claims seriously, and they seem to believe the accounts of other victims as well. They're even bringing up an old incident where Diddy allegedly set fire to Kid Cudi's car when he showed interest in Cassie. While arson isn't a formal charge, it's part of the bigger racketeering picture. So, as it stands, Diddy's facing some serious charges, and while his team is fighting to get him out on bail, the government isn't budging, seeing him as a serious threat who could still cause trouble if released. During the searches of his homes in Miami and Los Angeles, law enforcement found some serious firepower. They seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 AR-15s with the serial numbers completely scratched off. For those unfamiliar, tampering with a serial number on a gun is a federal crime by itself. They even found these guns broken down in parts, hidden in his Miami bedroom closet, along with loaded magazines. In addition to these defaced guns, the authorities also found 6 legally purchased guns in safes. But it doesn't stop there. Prosecutors are accusing Diddy of trying to mess with witnesses. They claim that after Cassie's 2023 lawsuit was filed, Diddy started reaching out to potential witnesses and victims. Prosecutors say he tried to twist the narrative, calling them up and feeding them false stories about what had gone down. For example, just 3 days after Cassie filed her lawsuit, Diddy reportedly called up another victim of his alleged abuse and tried to convince her that she was a willing participant. He even offered her support, saying she wouldn't need to worry about anything. But the most serious part of the prosecutor's case comes down to the fact that Diddy allegedly continued to contact witnesses after learning about the criminal investigation. Apparently, he kept calling people, even some who had already been served with subpoenas, which looks a lot like obstruction of justice. One of the arguments for denying bail is that many of these alleged crimes happened in Diddy homes, so putting him on house arrest wouldn't exactly stop anything from happening. The feds are saying, how can we be sure he won't just continue this kind of behavior from his house? The weight of the evidence is another huge factor here. The government has already interviewed over 50 witnesses, many of whom either saw or experienced Diddy's abusive behavior. Their stories are consistent, and there's physical evidence too. The feds have seized more than 90 different devices, including cell phones, laptops, hard drives, and even surveillance systems, which they say show clear evidence of criminal activity. It's not just digital evidence, though. They also found things like over 1,000 bottles of baby oil and personal lubricant used during the Freakoffs. The prosecution wrapped up their argument to the judge by basically saying, "There's no way you can let this guy out on bail. He's a danger to the community, and we can't trust that he'll show up to court or not continue his crimes." They pointed out that just a year ago, Diddy was getting handed the key to New York City in Times Square, but now he's sitting in jail, facing a serious criminal trial. At the bail hearing, the judge had to weigh all the evidence, and, given the gravity of the situation, the guns, the violence, and the accusations of witness tampering, she decided there's no way Diddy should be released. She denied bail, meaning Diddy is staying behind bars until his trial. Despite his family showing up and being supportive, the judge said the risk is too high. Now, we have to mention the part that Usher and JB play in this entire mess. As of now, their names did not show up in the indictment. However, as this bundle of dirty info gets disentangled slowly, we might get to see some of Hollywood's finest called out. And, if you know Puffy Flavor Camp, then you know that both JB and Usher were in it. When Usher was a teenager, he moved to New York to work with Diddy. Diddy played a significant role in shaping Usher's early career, providing mentorship and guidance during his formative years in the music industry. This period was crucial for Usher's development as an artist, and Diddy's influence was significant. Diddy's recent allegations, including sex trafficking and violence, might cast a shadow over his past relationships, including with Usher. While Usher has not been implicated in these allegations, the nature of the charges could prompt discussions about the influence and environment Usher was exposed to during his formative years. Usher himself has spoken about the intense and sometimes problematic nature of his early career experiences, which might resonate differently in light of Diddy's current legal troubles. As for Justin, his connection to Diddy is less direct but still notable. Bieber was discovered by Scooter Braun and mentored by Usher. Diddy and Bieber crossed paths due to their shared circles and the industry connections. Diddy's high-profile lifestyle and presence in the music industry meant he was a part of the environment Bieber navigated early in his career. Diddy has publicly supported Bieber, including gifting him a luxury car for his 16th birthday. These gestures highlight the connection between them, though it's more of a celebrity camaraderie rather than a deep professional relationship. With Diddy facing serious charges, media and public scrutiny often extends to his past associations. Usher and Bieber, being high-profile figures who had notable interactions with Diddy, might face indirect questions about their connections to him. This scrutiny can create pressure to clarify their relationships or distance themselves from Diddy's alleged actions. Are Usher and JB going to say something publicly? Maybe try to distance themselves from the controversy, or to reflect on their experiences? We've yet to see either one of them say something about Didster. Usher and JB's connections to Diddy add spice to this whole story. The fact that they share a history with Diddy could put their names and perhaps even careers in a tough spot. But let's wait and see how things play out. For now, they're just somebody that Diddy helped out hop in the game. So that's where things stand right now. Diddy's locked up, and the case is moving closer and closer to a criminal trial. It's a long road ahead, and things are looking pretty grim for him.